Hello and welcome to Mr. Kumar's podcast. Today we are going to learn about photosynthesis. Ooh, that's a tough subject, but don't worry, we are gonna make it an easy and split it into three parts. So the first I'm going to explain today in the introduction. So take a nice deep breath. No, you're not going to do yoga, but when you're doing a deep breath, you're inhaling oxygen. Where does this oxygen comes from? Yes, if your answer is plants, that's a correct answer. But the plants contribute to only 20% of the oxygen to this universe. So the rainforests are the major contributors and they are 20% contributor for the oxygen. But the question arises that who is the major contributor to the oxygen for this universe? So the answer lies in the ocean. So you'll be surprised to know the majority of the oxygen is coming from the ocean. But your question will be how it comes from the ocean. So you have to go deep down in the ocean to see that there are small creatures called as phytoplanktons, which are responsible for producing majority of the oxygen of this universe. So the answer for the question, where do the majority of oxygen lies in ocean? So these phytoplanktons, they produce the oxygen through a process called as photosynthesis. So what is photosynthesis? We have learned the cellular respiration. So it's exactly the opposite of cellular respiration. If you look at the chemical equation for cellular respiration and flip it, it's going to be photosynthesis. So we are going to do what is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is just a process through which the plants capture light and convert that energy into the carbohydrates or the glucose. So as you know, glucose is the main fuel for producing ATP. And the ATP is energy. We have learned that in cellular respiration. And every living organism, they need energy for their various activities, for their growth, for reproduction, and the various activities. So ATP is a main thing. But the plants cannot eat, or they cannot go to McDonald's to eat burgers and get converted that hamburger into carbohydrate and then to the ATPs. So plant, they make their own food, or the process is called as photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is converting the light energy into the carbohydrates or the glucose. So we'll look further into detail that what exactly are the process for the photosynthesis. So if you look at the word photosynthesis, we can split that word into two to understand the whole process. So the word goes with photo and synthesis. So you're going to split those photosynthesis word into two. One is photo and the second is synthesis. So it has two steps. One, in photo, that is a light capturing step. And this is also called as a light dependent process because the plants, they use light to convert the various through various steps, and the light is captured using photosynthetic pigments to convert that into ATPs and NADP. And the second part is synthesis. Synthesis is the production of carbohydrates from that energy which was captured during the light dependent process. So let's look into that. So photosynthesis is divided into two parts. Light dependent, which is a photo part. And why do we call as photo? Because light is having small energy packets called as photons. And the energy from these photons are converted to chemical energy bonds. And which are these bonds? These are like NADPH, ATP. So these energy are converted into chemical bonds of NADPH and ATP through a process called as redox reaction. So when we have done the cellular respiration, we have done that in detail. What is a redox reaction? So if you are not able to recall, go back to the video of cellular respiration and go over the redox reaction for that. So that's a process through which the energy from the photons is converted into chemical bonds, which are ATP and NADPH. So synthesis part, that what happens in synthesis, the energy which was converted from the light into ATP and NADPH, that is used to fuel the synthesis of atmospheric carbon, which comes from carbon dioxide, which is a 3-carbon molecule, and it is made into glucose. So the energy which was used or produced in the form of ATP and NADPH is converted into glucose through the process in synthesis. So putting these two together, in photosynthesis, which is making of glucose, which is a fuel for the cellular respiration, it is in 2 parts. One is a light reaction and a light independent reaction, which is also called as Calvin cycle. I'm going to do that in detail in the next video. So photosynthesis is in which the plants, they capture the light from in the form of photons, and the energy of these photons are converted into a chemical bond energy, which are NADPH and ATP, through a process called as redox reaction. So these energy which are made during the photo part goes to the synthesis part, where these energy from the ATP and NADPH fuels the synthesis of glucose from carbon dioxide, which is also the carbon fixation cycle, and it's called as a Calvin cycle. So in this, you don't use light, that was it's called as a light independent reaction. So just a summary of this video, photosynthesis is capturing of light and converting that light into energy in the form of ATP and NADPH, and that energy is used to fix the carbon, to convert the carbon dioxide into glucose, which is C6H12O6. So it's in 2 parts, photo part, that is light reaction, and the Calvin cycle. So in the next video, I'm going to discuss in detail